Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paying for Spring Semester Smart Borrowing Strategies. I'm really glad you joined me here today because spring tuition deadlines are coming fast, and now's the time to make sure you have a plan that feels both confident and sustainable. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll walk you through practical steps to help you borrow wisely, plan with confidence, and avoid the common mistakes that can cost students thousands down the road. Towards the end of this webinar, we'll set aside some time for several common questions asked by students and families. If time permits, we'll then open things up for additional questions in the chat box or the Q&A box that's found at the bottom of your toolbar. Okay? Before we dive in, let me go ahead and introduce myself and why I'm so passionate about this topic. My name is Kumba McGill. I'm a relationship manager at Ascent Funding. I've spent over 5 years working in higher education, helping students and families navigate what can feel like a maze of loan options, forms, and deadlines. My goal here today is simple: to help you make informed decisions that set you up for success and not stress. Every decision you make today will be a ripple effect on your financial future. And that's exactly why this conversation matters. So before we talk about borrowing strategies, let's start with why it's so important to get this right now. If you're like most students, I myself have a college-age student, so I completely understand what some of y'all are going through, whether it's from the student side or the parent side. Spring semester deadlines are right around the corner, and missing them can mean late fees or even registration holds. But beyond the paperwork, the choices you make today, how much you borrow, from where, and under what terms will shape your financial life for years to come. Think of this as building your financial foundation. Smart planning now really does equal less stress later. Our shared goal today is to help you borrow only what you need and to give you strategies that make paying for college a little less overwhelming. Now, here's how we're going to tackle this step by step. We'll start off by breaking down the differences between federal and private loans, understanding where each fits into your plan. Then I'll show you simple ways to calculate exactly how much you need to borrow, not a guess, but a real number. Next, we'll go through smart budgeting strategies so your money stretches further. We'll also talk about cosigners, what they need to know before signing. And finally, we'll wrap up with common pitfalls that can quietly cost students thousands of dollars and how you can avoid them. Let's begin with understanding your loan options because knowing what's available is the first step toward borrowing smart. When it comes to student loans, there are two main categories: federal and private. Federal loans are backed by the government. They come with fixed interest rates, income-driven repayment plans, and forgiveness options for certain careers. They don't require a credit check for most undergrads, and they'll often be the safest place to start. Private loans, on the other hand, can come from banks, credit unions, or lenders like Ascent. Most of them are credit-based, which means your credit or your cosigner's credit affects your rate. The upside is there's lots of flexibility with private loans, and they can cover the full cost of attendance and may offer competitive rates if your credit is strong. For example, Ascent offers flexible private loan options for students at different stages of their educational journey, to include undergraduate loans with or without a cosigner designed for students pursuing a degree, graduate loans for students in master's, medical, law, dental programs, to name a few, career and bootcamp loans covering non-traditional educational loans like tech boot camps and certificate programs, and lastly, parent or sponsor loans, allowing parents or sponsors to borrow on behalf of a student. We know that borrowing for college is a big decision, which is why Ascent offers competitive interest rates, fixed and variable rates, options based on credit and cosigner qualifications, no fees, no applications, origination, or repayment fees, flexible repayment options, choose from interest-only payments, defer payments, or immediate repayment plans. And lastly, we have our Ascent program, which is a financial wellness resource. We provide tools to help you budget, manage your loans, and make smart financial decisions. But regardless of which loan option you choose, whether it's federal or private, the standard recommendation is that you maximize your federal loans first and then consider private loans to fill any remaining gap. Only you know your options. The next question becomes, how much do you actually need to borrow? One of the biggest mistakes students make is borrowing based on estimate instead of actual numbers. The best approach is simple math. Start with your direct costs, such as tuition, fees, books, housing. Subtract all your aid, grants, scholarships, work study, and any savings you may have. Then apply any living expenses for the semester, like transportation or groceries. The final number is your true borrowing need, not what's offered to you, but what you genuinely need to get through the semester. Once again, it's going to be tuition plus fees plus books plus living expenses minus aid minus savings equals borrowing need. It's always better to slightly underborrow than to take out extra and spend it on non-essentials. Every borrowed dollar costs more once interest kicks in. Remember that. Every borrowed dollar costs more once interest kicks in. And speaking of stretching your dollars, let's talk about smart budgeting strategies that help you borrow less in the first place. Budgeting doesn't have to be complicated, right? But it does have to be intentional. What that means is you start by knowing your numbers. Track every dollar that comes in and goes out. Apps like Mint or even a simple Google Sheet works great. We don't have to make it very complicated. Then choose a budgeting method that fits your lifestyle. That may be the 50-30-20 rule, which states 50% needs, 30% wants, and 20% savings/debt. Or the envelope method, which is where you allocate cash to specific categories. Regardless of which option you pick, you must pick the best option for you, and everyone is different. Look for savings whenever you can. Buy used books, take advantage of student discounts, walk instead of drive, and use campus resources you've already paid for. For example, that cafeteria. Use that. That will save you a lot of money from Dashes and Uber Eats by using your on-campus caf. Finally, build a small emergency fund. Even as little as $500 can prevent you from reaching for another loan when unexpected things happen. So you can save as much as $25 if you are working to save up to this little much of $500 for any type of unexpected needs. Remember, budgeting equals freedom. You're telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Now, for many students, another part of the equation involves a cosigner. So let's talk about that next. Co-signing a student loan can be a great way to secure a low rate, but it's also a serious commitment. Co-signers can be parents, co-signers can be siblings, aunts, uncles, depending who is in your life that's willing to do that. It can even be grandparents. Both the student and the co-signer share full legal responsibility for repayment. Remember that. Both the student and the co-signer share full legal responsibility for repayment. That means if the student misses a payment, the co-signer is on the hook. So before signing, review all terms, the interest rate, APR, fees, any repayment conditions. Ask about cosigner release. Some lenders, like Ascent, allows it after a set number of on-time payments. For us specifically, that's 12 months. And other lenders may be particularly different. Make sure you do your research. And most importantly, talk through a backup plan because anything can happen, right? Who covers payments if something happens to the cosigner? Who and how will you communicate that? Having these conversations now saves you a lot of stress later. A strong cosigner can save you thousands of dollars, but both parties need to go in with eyes wide open because, once again, it is a big commitment. Now that we've covered how to plan and borrow wisely, let's look at the biggest mistakes students make and how you can avoid them. Every semester, I see students lose money over simple, preventable mistakes. The first is borrowing more than they need. Those extra funds often go towards things like takeout or travel and end up costing much more later. Missing FAFSA or financial aid deadlines. FAFSA qualifies you for federal grants, scholarships, work studies, unsubsidized loans, etc. Once again, the FAFSA is open right now. The FAFSA is open right now. So for those who have not filled it out, make sure you go ahead and do that for next year. FAFSA deadlines is really, really important because it can give you access to free money, right? Free money like great grants, scholarships that do not have to be repaid back. Overlooking fees and release rules are another potential pitfalls, like origination fees, late payments, cosigner release requirements, or missing deadlines. Make sure you're writing down all these deadlines. The second one is ignoring variable interest rates. They can look appealing upfront, but can rise significantly over time. And don't skip the comparison step either. Every lender is different, so always use a comparison tool before applying. Comparison tools allows you to look at multiple lenders at the same time to compare all their features, right? Oftentimes, your financial aid office will have a comparison tool on the financial aid website that will link you to these various lending options that are available to you. Finally, remember that even during grace periods, interest often keeps occurring. So staying proactive can save you a lot in the long run. Once again, that like the grace periods, during those grace periods, interest often keeps occurring. So staying proactive can save you a lot in the long run. Let's wrap up with a few key takeaways to keep you on track this semester. Here's the bottom line. Plan smart, borrow smart, start with federal loans first for their protections, then only turn to private loans for any remaining gap. Always calculate your true need. Costs minus aid minus savings. If you have a cosigner, make sure both of you understand the responsibilities before signing anything. And of course, staying organized, don't miss deadlines, read the fine print, and make smart borrowing decisions that align with your goals, not just your immediate needs. Once again, staying organized, don't miss deadlines, reading the fine print, and make smart borrowing decisions that align with your goals, not just your immediate needs. Remember, we're here to help. If you have questions about planning, borrowing, or managing your spring semester funds, let's talk. I can be easily reached at kumba@ascentfunding.com. So, before we wind down, let's go ahead and discuss common questions from students and parents. One of the first questions is, do I need to take out a loan for spring semester? Only if there is a true gap after grants, scholarships, work studies, and savings. Loans should fill a need, not a convenience. Should I accept a full loan amount I was offered? Not automatically. Loans offer what you can loans offers show you what you can borrow, not what you should. Always borrow only your calculated need. Is a student loan better than using a credit card? In most cases, yes. Student loans typically offer lower interest rates and more flexible repayment options than credit cards do. Should we use federal or private loans first? As I said earlier, federal loans by industry recommendation is to always look for federal loans first for their protections and repayment flexibility, and then private loans can help fill any remaining gaps. Are private loans risky? They can be a smart tool when used intentionally. The key is understanding rates, terms, fees, borrower benefits, and once again, only borrowing what you need and doing research about that specific company. What does it mean to have a cosigner? Cosigners share full responsibility for the loan. Missed payments affects both the student and the cosigner's credit. Can a cosigner be removed later? Some lenders allow cosigner release after consecutive on-time payments. Always ask about requirements before signing. As I said earlier, for folks that take out Ascent loans, we do have a 12-month cosigner release after 12 consecutive payments. Your cosigner can be released. Does interest occur during the grace period? Often, yes. Even when payments aren't required, interest may still be added to your balance. What's the biggest borrowing mistake students make? Overborrowing. Extra funds today means higher repayment costs tomorrow. What should we do after this webinar? I would say review your aid offer, calculate your true borrowing need, confirm deadlines, and compare loan options carefully. And for folks that may need additional support after this webinar, we'll be having an additional webinar about cosigner crash course happening on December 18th at the same time, 5:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. It's called Cosigner Crash Course, and it's happening on December 8th at the same time. Okay, if you need additional support on further details about cosigners. Okay. Now, we still have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to look if you can put any additional questions that you may have in the chat or the Q&A box. I will then go ahead and gather those questions. Okay. Awesome. We have a question here. Can I ask if federal loans and FAFSA are available to international students? Great question. The FAFSA is generally for U.S. citizens and permanent residents, so it would not apply to international students. But your specific university may have scholarships for international students. So that's why it's really, really important for you to go ahead and contact your financial aid office to see what additional resources they may have for international students. And I do know that private lenders do lend to international students with a U.S. cosigner. For example, Ascent does offer private loans to international students with a U.S. cosigner. You can go to our website at ascentfunding.com to be able to get further details about that, but I will also reach out to your financial aid office as well. Okay? If you have another question, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A box or in the chat feature at the bottom of your panel. Okay, let me see. I see another question here. What happens if I borrow more than I need? As I said, if you borrow more than you need, that's going to affect you later on in terms of interest. So it's really, really important that only borrow what you need because that means you're going to have to pay all that back, right? And the goal is for you not to get into unnecessary debt. So borrow what you need. Okay, is there another question here? Any advantages by Parent Plus and private loans? What, if you can expand on what you mean by that? Are you talking about the differences between them or what exactly do you mean? Any advantages uh between Parent Plus, just like with as I said with the federal loans, they do have additional protections. So we always recommend that first before looking at the private option. Now there's been a lot of with OB3, the One Big Beautiful Bill, there's been a lot of changes dealing with Parent Plus. The limitations have been reduced. So I would go ahead and review that before there are some adjustments. So folks may be looking necessarily to private loans now to help fill in that gap. But typically, the recommendation is federal loans first because they tend to have more protections than a standard private loan. Even though one of the things that Ascent does offer here is a lot of borrower benefits, protections, um, various repayment options and stuff. So it's really good to just compare the two. Um, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Any additional questions? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, I see here. Yes, the FAFSA is open now. The 2026-27 FAFSA is open now, so it's really important that you go ahead and fill that out. And that will give you access to free aid like grants and scholarships and unsubsidized federal loans too as well and work study options. So please fill out that FAFSA. Okay. Is there another? Yes. At ascentfunding.com, we do have scholarships for students that uh, are, whether you're a borrower or not, we have monthly scholarships, $1,000, no essay, because I know students hate essays. So if you go to ascentfunding.com under scholarships, you can apply for our monthly scholarship as our way of giving back to students, and there's no essay involved in that. Every month we will pick a winner for a scholarship. That's correct. Yes. Once again, yeah, the key is understanding with private loans, it's really understanding your rates, your terms, your fees, borrowing only what you need. That's really, really important to do that. Federal loans is recommended federal loans first due to their protections and repayment flexibilities, and then you can move to private loans to help you fill the remaining gap. Okay? That is what the industry recommendation is. All right. Any additional questions, please put it in the chat or the Q&A box. All right. Once again, on December 18th, we will be having a 30-minute webinar session for a co-signer crash course that will go into details about that. It's happening on December 18th at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time and 8:30 Eastern Time. Okay? All right. If we don't have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out or connect with your financial aid officers. I can be reached at uh, Kumba McGill at ascentfunding.com, K McGill at ascentfunding.com, K McGill at ascentfunding.com for any additional questions that you may have. wishing you a smooth, successful spring semester and hoping all the best as you continue your educational journey. Thank you so much.